Welcome, everyone. I'm Kimberly Boscheman, and this is the Intentionally Intuitive podcast. In this episode, we're going to take a look at round 2. We've made it through the first eclipse, the solar eclipse, and now we're gearing up for the full moon lunar eclipse that's going to be occurring on October 28th or 29th, depending on where you live within the world. So we're going to take a closer look at each life path number and what could be in store for the next storyline over the next 6 months from this eclipse that could be unfolding for you personally. This, of course, is a general reading. So if you would like a personalized reading to get a better understanding of how your own personal numerology plays into the aspects of your life, then I'd love to take a look. You can work with me one-on-one. My information is in the description box below to book some time. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So how's everyone doing out there? How was that solar eclipse for you all? This lunar eclipse, I think, is going to be a little bit more gentle in the way that it sort of brings things in and sort of allows it to unfold. That solar eclipse was a little bit more intense and held very intense energies that we'll also be working with over the next 6 months. So these will kind of be sort of an interplay, right? They'll be working together in tandem. But this will kind of give you an idea of another sort of perspective or viewpoint as far as another dose of energies that we'll be working with pretty significantly over the next 6 months to a year, depending. So let's go ahead and take a look at each life path number forecast for this full moon lunar eclipse. Life path 22-4. So for you all, this lunar eclipse is bringing in the vibrations of the 4 and the 5. So the 4 is ultimately your own life path number, right? 22-4. That is your core energy. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because whatever needs to come in to help you to step into that 4 energy is going to come in. But it's going to be around themes of the 4, right? But they're themes, they're things you're already working with. So you may not notice them as extremely. But you're also working with a 5, and the 5 is very significant. And so I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I also pulled your animal wisdom message, and you got scarab beetle. And so this is also interesting because this brings in the element almost of like the 10 of wands. So there is this energy of strong ambition and also this kind of energy or tone of feeling like you have to do it all yourself. And so really this brings me to what is it that you're shouldering or feel burdened by that isn't really yours to carry? Like, what is it that you could delegate, you could offload, you didn't have to pick up, and you could put it down? It's not yours, but you're taking it on out of martyrdom or pride or this feeling of obligation. I really do think because it's a full moon in the sign of Taurus, which Taurus is a very grounded earth energy. It's also about ambition and about building sort of like your castle and enjoying the finer things in life and success and all those things and money. But it's interesting because it's almost like there's this feeling, 22-4s, of being too grounded, like too ambitious, too overworked, too overburdened. And so I do think that you're going to have to, or you'll sort of be invited to release some of that, find a way to, again, delegate. That's one thing I would say with 4 energy that's difficult. Because it's such a solution-focused, ambitious energy that it's like, I see the solution, so I'm going to work towards it, and I know how it needs to be done, so that's how we're going to do it. So I think with Scarab coming in, and even with this Taurus energy, there's something where it's like you're too rooted, you're too grounded. It's almost like this heavy energy. And so you need to find ways to not be so serious, to lighten up, find the levity, and also to trust others to be able to do the work, even if it's not done in the same way that you would do it. Trust them to be able to do it. And if it helps you to find a team to be able to do it that you feel confident in, great. But once you turn it over, you have to turn it over, and let the other people do what they need to do. This also comes back to asking for help when you need it. And that's another very difficult thing that 22/4s and 4s really struggle with, is asking for help when they need it, especially when it has to do with emotional topics, right? Like things that weigh heavily on the heart of a 22/4. So this is a really great energy. And remember, this is an eclipse, so it's a storyline over like the next 6 to 12 months where you're going to feel it the most probably prominent or most intensely. This is a great time to seek help, right? Get therapy, talk to someone, speak to a professional who can help you to work through some of those deeper emotions. Because I will say a keynote of the 22/4 of the 4 is having to, in this lifetime, really work through and process their emotions so that they can really fine tune and tune into their intuition and follow that intuition, right? Because if that intuition is sort of covered up with all of this emotional trauma and sort of, heavier things that need to be processed and transmuted and acknowledged and worked through, it's really hard to, decipher between, is this my emotion speaking or is this my intuition? And so anyway, I think there's definitely something here about this could be an uncomfortable period because you probably are going to have to rely on people. You don't have to, right? I mean, you can do this on your own, but it's definitely the harder road. And so a big journey of the 22/4 and the 4 is work smarter, not harder. And in order to do that, we have to collaborate. We have to work with others. We have to be vulnerable. We have to share all those things. And we have to take into other people's ideas into account. And so I do think that this is going to be a period potentially where you're going to be asked to release. And, we sort of overuse that word as just just release it, no big deal. But it's, it sometimes is a big deal, especially if you're emotionally attached to it or if you have fear around it or whatever. And so it's more like just find ways that feel good to you to be able to delegate. That's a big one, right? Because you are a leader. You are a teacher in this lifetime. You are someone who is probably going to be at the head of the class type thing, leading the way. But that doesn't mean that you're supposed to do it all. So if there's anywhere in your life where you are trying to do it all, or you're trying to be everything for everyone, or whatever the case may be, there's definitely something going to be coming up for you with this eclipse that really needs you to lay some of this down and delegate and unburden yourself, however that looks for you. Now, I will say that this eclipse is the last eclipse in the Scorpio-Taurus cycle, so the last 18 months, right? And so it could be that this is a theme that's been kind of happening for the last 18 months or so for you, and this is the culmination because it is a full moon, so there is something here about culmination. So it could be something that like at this, an aha moment sort of comes in for you around this eclipse that's like, oh, this is what I need to lay down and I need to find a way to do it. And for the next 6 months, I'm going to dedicate and focus on doing that. So I really think that there's a lot coming in around that. There's you can't get rid of your ambition because that's just such a strong piece of the 4 or that solution focused orientation. It's just such a big keynote. And we're not asking you to do that. We're saying, don't overburden yourself. It's very easy for a 4 to go into, or 22/4 too, right? To go into like workaholic, become like the workaholic and then like become out of balance with home and work life. So any of those themes that this is resonating, those are the areas where you're really being asked to do things more in moderation, find your balance, find your center, delegate, get a team. It's like you might be like, well, I can't afford a team, but you can't afford not to have a team. You know what I mean? So even if it's like you have to get creative in that sense, there's something here where you can't fly because you're overburdened and so you're grounded. And so what is it that needs to be released? Or I wouldn't even say released. What is it that you need to offload, to delegate? With the 5 energy, this is something where it's like asking you to think more unconventionally, to think outside the box, to do things differently, to release control, to find more ways to be, more expressive and creatively expressive, but in a very freeing, liberating way. It's interesting because with the 5 energy, there is this feeling of liberation. It's the freedom seeker. So again, I come back to there's something that's restricting you or burdening you that you are asked to release yourself from, to free yourself. Because once you can do that, then you're going to, then the creativity starts coming in, and then the expansiveness and, being able to enjoy life with all of your senses starts to come in. It becomes less serious, because 4 energy can go serious very quickly. So there's just this energy again of bringing more levity into your life and enjoying the simple things and not taking life so serious. And again, thinking a little bit outside the box. That's also a big journey of the 4. And again, that is your core life path energy, is to think outside the box and not be so rigid. And the 5 will help us to do that. And so I do think that there's going to be some change, transformation over the next 6 months for you all that will probably be more gradual or progressive, but that you will find at the end of this cycle is liberating, is allowing you to breathe much more gently because you're not so burdened. But there's also a lesson there in being very discerning with what you take on and being very aware of, is it something that you really do need to take on more, or can you release it? Can you delegate it? And if you can't delegate it, why can't you delegate it? Is it because you don't trust the other person, or is it because it's really something that only you and your expertise can handle? So there's all these kind of questions that come into it. And it doesn't just have to be work related, right? I know we talk a lot about work when it comes to, or purpose when it comes to 22-4, because you're the master builder, right? And so there's a lot here around that. But it can be about any area of your life where you're just taking on too much. You're burning the candle at both ends. And at some point, you're not going to have a candle left. So, yeah, I would say your key word this lunar eclipse is delegate, release, let go, find your joy, think unconventionally, do things differently. Step outside the box, dance outside the box, just, take a sick day or whatever, or just just do something wild. But I do think the opportunities will come in, and I think they'll be plentiful over the next 6 months for you to see where it is that maybe you're a little bit too headstrong or stubborn in a certain area and you're taking on more than you can chew, and it's going to catch up to you. So this energy is helping you to recognize oh, I don't have to do it all. I can delegate and everything will get done, and it'll get done wonderfully. So work harder, not smarter in all areas of life. All right, 22-4s, I hope it's a powerful one. Take care. Bye for now.